everyone, and thank you for joining us for today's webinar, Governing Microsoft 365 on the Golden Path to AI Value, Enabling Productivity Without Increasing Risk. My name is Vlad Catrinescu. I'm Syskit's Technical Evangelist and a Microsoft MVP from Montreal, Canada. Now, most of you already know Syskit as a company, but for those of you who don't, let me briefly introduce you. Syskit is a software development company founded more than 16 years ago. We currently have more than 3,500 customers around the world, ranging from small businesses to large corporations. Our flagship product, Syskit Point, is a scalable platform that helps you simplify your Microsoft 365 visibility, governance, and security. Whether you need detailed reports, real-time access, management actions, automated workspace provisioning, or simply optimizing storage and licensing, or getting Copilot ready, which is the big topic of today's webinar, Syskit Point has you covered. Before we start, I just wanted to cover some of the boring but important housekeeping items. First of all registrants will receive a recording of the webinar within a few days. Usually it's really fast. And at the end, we will have a Q&A session where we will answer any questions that you may have. So please, you have the chance today of having three awesome panelists. So if you have any questions, please ask them, and we'll do our best to get to all of them by the time we finish the webinar. Now, it's my pleasure to introduce today's panelist. First of all, we have Callum Ring, which is an AI innovation architect at Bytes Software Services, specializing in leveraging AI and automation to enhance business processes. With a strong background in Microsoft security and Copilot services, he has led teams and driven innovative solutions across enterprise environments. Callum is passionate about translating emerging AI technologies into real-world impact. Our next amazing panelist is Andrei Negrut. Andrei is a product manager with 10 plus years of experience helping organizations unlock productivity and innovation through Microsoft 365 and the Power Platform. He specializes in AI agents and Copilot integration, low-code adoption, and governance for secure, scalable enterprise solutions. Andrei is recognized for enabling citizen developers, accelerating automation, and bridging technology with business outcomes to deliver measurable value. Last but not least, we have Danijel from the Syskit team, who has over a decade of experience focusing on solving customer problems and delivering value and high-quality products. He's the one responsible for defining and aligning Syskit Point's vision and strategy with customer challenges, market needs, and company objectives. And well, I will be your panelist. I'll be your host mostly for today. I'm the one that's going to ask them all the tough questions, but I already talked too much, so we can skip this part. But before we get started, and before we get into the questions, I wanted to just take 1 or 2 minutes and talk about the problem that we're trying to solve. And many people today are wondering, why is data even important for a generative AI project? And I know when it comes to AI, a lot of arguing or people disagreeing with passion is all about the best model out there. And don't get me wrong, that's a very important discussion as well. And if you look even just on Microsoft Foundry, which is our Microsoft world where we can access all the models, we have over 11,000 models that we can use for different generative AI needs. And even Microsoft cannot pick one single model that works best across all the workloads, because we have seen some of the copilots move from the open AI models, in which Microsoft is a big investor in, to Anthropic Claude for things such as designing PowerPoint presentations. But if I'm honest, one topic that is probably even more important than the model you pick is the data that you're training that model on. Then that will have an even bigger impact, in my opinion, on your AI project success. And it's not only me saying that. If we look at some industry research, according to Gartner, 63% of organizations either don't have AI ready data or they're not sure if they do. Even more concerning is that Gartner predicts that 60% of AI projects will be abandoned due to missing or inadequate AI ready data. That is scary, to be honest. 60% is a lot, but now you might also be wondering, okay, but what does it mean to have AI ready data? And of course, this can be open to more interpretation, but there are three main pillars or tasks that you should consider as part of your plan. First, very important, security and compliance, because without that, you might get into more trouble than you're solving with your Gen AI projects. We also have integration of all of our data sources. I know most of us on this webinar, we are Microsoft 365 fans. A lot of our data is in the Microsoft 365 ecosystem, but you rarely have a company that is 100% Microsoft 365. You might have stuff in HubSpot, you might have stuff in Salesforce, you might still have stuff in a file share somewhere, and you're only going to unlock that value if you integrate all of them together. And finally, this one is very important as well, is making sure that all your current data is relevant and of high quality. This means getting rid of old data, maybe adding metadata and classifications to current data, and ensuring that your data is representative and doesn't have bias. Of course, this is very high level, and that's why we have some amazing panelists today that will help us deep dive into them. So I'd like to invite all of them to turn on their cameras and come on stage here. Give it a few seconds. There we go. Hi, Danijel.
Hi, everyone.
Callum, Andrei, thank you so much for joining me today. Let me start with, I want to say an easy one, but none of them are really easy today. But let's start with my first question is, what changes when AI tools like Copilot start accessing Microsoft 365 data at scale? And Andrei, I'd like to get started with you.
Yeah, I think it's a great question. And now I was just to based on the good introduction that you had, Vlad. I remember, when we met the first time. I think it's almost 10 years ago now at the SharePoint conference. How many things changed, right? In the meantime, right? And some of these questions, I think we will never had those questions, right? If this technology didn't change that much, right?
We're still talking about on-premises and min-roll, and that was all the fun stuff in SharePoint back then.
Yeah. And to do a quick comparison, right? I remember when I was talking to my colleagues back in the day, right? And everyone was kind of keen of keeping their on-prem servers and everything. There is no chance that Microsoft 365 will move ahead, right? So, and you see it happens, right? Same here, no? A lot of people maybe are, being challenged of the fact that AI is coming, but it is there already, right? So we have to do a better job and see how we can use it, in full scale. And yeah, going back to your question, Vlad, it's for me, AI is still a new capability for most of the organizations. I think this is pretty clear, right? Also, what is important, and this is what I'm doing right now, roadmaps are being created, but also depending on the experience we are enabling right now. So basically, we have started maybe some months ago, but we are still building roadmaps, what's coming next, right? So if you already had governance, now it's time to improve it, I think. So yeah, that's how I see it. And again, everything will change, right? AI reveals doors we didn't even knew were open. This is how I take it, right? To answer and short your question. Suddenly you see things about your data that were invisible before because you have more power now, right? Every end user have that. So that's my take on your
It's a great amplifier, I think. of your current status. If it was good, it'll be good, but if it's bad, you're just amplified that. I love that answer. Callum, do you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think you've kind of covered just now, actually, Vlad, the point I was going to make. So I completely agree absolutely with everything Andrei said. The scope for what we can do now is huge. My general answer when someone says to me, what's going to change with AI is everything and nothing both at the same time, because everything will change. The way that we can do things is so much faster. The amount of things that I can do every day is probably 10x, if not more, what I used to be able to do. But at the same time, the fundamentals of what I do are still the same. Good architecture remains the same, good governance and security. The data fundamentally is the same data. If it was bad 5 years ago and it's still bad now, that's not a new problem that AI has introduced. It's a problem that the organization's had forever. So I think a lot of people sometimes can get caught up almost in the hype train of, there's this thing called AI and it's completely changing our organization, which it is, but you can't use that as something to hide behind as well. If the fundamentals are bad, then they're bad. That's not AI's fault. That's just something that we need to get over. I think the positive that I see a lot of the time with it's a really good kind of carrot to dangle to a lot of people to say, again, when I was doing this a few years ago, if I was trying to convince an organization to go and completely redesign their DLP structure and permissions and what good looks like, that was kind of a hard conversation because there was no real interest. It was a security problem, it wasn't a productivity problem. Now that's changed. Exactly as we've said at the top of this webinar, if the data's bad, the AI is going to be bad. So there's more of an emphasis now, I think, on organizations to actually make these things right and do the basics in the right way now.
Awesome. That's some great feedback. Danijel, I know we've covered it a lot, but anything you want to add?
No, just I second everything that people said here. So it was basically nice to fix before. A lot of it was quiet, and you basically had to be almost malicious to find some of the data. So you need to know what to look, have the patience to dig it out, and all of that stuff. So with AI, with Copilot, this actually changed, and a lot of this discovery becomes instant. It's conversational. It's something that's repeatable. So in that sense, it's as you said, Callum, it's a productivity issue. It's no longer just a security or governance issue.
It's funny how we never knew SharePoint to be the best search engine, right? Even if you knew what you were looking for, you couldn't find it. But now we went to you're finding stuff by accident that you don't have access to. It's crazy how you have on, if you go on TikTok or Instagram now, you have how was 2016 trend. Somebody should do that for this SharePoint world. But Danijel, let me start with you for this next one, since you interact with so many clients at Syskit, so you get to know what their problems are. Which governance gaps tend to surface first? Is it the visibility? Is it the permissions, data quality, lifecycle management? What do you see as that first thing, popping up as a problem for clients?
Yeah, usually the first problems that customers have are in terms of kind of the quality of the answer. So what you're kind of seeing there is a bunch of things mixed up. One of that is lifecycle, obviously. So data quality, you have a lot of data that is obsolete, that is duplicated, contradictory, even in some of the documents. So the quality of the answer is wrong. Then the kind of adoption falls, and then you need to kind of go into that. Why has the adoption fallen? Okay, yes, so the answers were wrong, or the answers were not satisfactory. So why was that? Then you kind of get to the point that either you had too much data that was obsolete, or in some cases even there was a lot of hallucinations in the past. Maybe not so much in the recent discussions, but I know when all of this started, there was a lot of hallucinations as well. So that's kind of where we see the first permissions. But then it kind of turns into permissions and all of the stuff that kind of oversharing and all of the potential data leakage is something that is also seen a lot by the customers.
Isn't it crazy to think that Copilot for M365 got announced in February 2023?
Yeah.
It still feels like it's yesterday that we saw the first things and we're so amazed, and then a year later we started using it and we're a bit disappointed versus DAGs. But that's a topic for another webinar. But it's crazy how fast things advanced and how good it became since as well, with the hallucinations, things like that. Callum, for your clients, what do you see are some of the first problems arising when they implement Copilot?
So I think absolutely all of the things that Daniel mentioned are incredibly important to everyone. There's something I think that sometimes missed actually, Vlad, which is I know it's a kind of a change to your question, but I think maybe we'll still hopefully help our attendees. So I think a lot of organizations now are getting a lot better at fixing some of those governance issues, because they're kind of the issues they had to fix before anyway. So if you have someone who's responsible for your data and they weren't able to fix it before, well, it's a heightened problem now, but it's the same problem. I think what a lot of people aren't putting as much effort into, which I think is going to be a real big gap very soon, is actually the governance of the agents themselves once they're created. So we're doing all of this work to get our data ready, get our security ready. Everyone then pulls the trigger and says, right, we've got Copilot, we've got agentic AI, whatever, we're doing this. And then in 6 months, there's 1,000 agents that are created. There's no data lifecycle for those agents. There's tons and tons and tons of partially completed solutions. Obviously Microsoft have announced things like App Builder, which are fantastic. They're gonna fall into exactly the same problem. And I think a lot of organizations have almost stopped at that point and said, our governance from our data is great, and aren't then going that step further. So a lot of time that I spend talking to customers around governance is almost that next piece now, where we're saying, great, you've developed this thing. How are you going to maintain it? Who's going to maintain it? How are you going to verify that what it's doing is actually correct? The agent that we create today isn't the agent that's going to be probably that helpful in 6 months' time, because things are moving so quickly, as we've said, that it needs constant feeding and watering, essentially. And I think that part of the issue I've seen is that kind of falls into a few different teams. That's not a security operations issue, that's not a IT issue or a development issue, it's kind of everyone's problem. So I've found real success in, and it sounds like a real buzzword, and I hate myself for saying that, for creating centers of excellence, genuine centers of excellence for these kinds of issues, where we say, let's make this everyone's problem, and make sure that we're actually on top of this. Otherwise, we'll do this webinar in a year's time and everyone will put in a question and say, great, governance was perfect a year ago, but now it's completely fallen over because we haven't kept on top of it. And then we're back in the same boat. We're back in the same issue again.
I love that you mentioned, and I'll just do a follow-up question to you, since you're the first one that mentioned agents today. So
Yeah.
You get the question. It's clearly a big problem, especially that Microsoft sees that we're all going to have multiple agents working for us, and we're all going to be team leaders of agents and things like that. Do you see tools like the recently announced Agent 365? Do you think they're going to improve that governance, or do you think for now it's simply raising awareness that, hey, if Microsoft is talking about it, it's a real problem?
I think probably more so the latter at the moment, to be honest. So I think it will definitely help. I mean, more visibility is always good. And I know that's one of the problems we've experienced internally, and our customers have experienced. I'm sure everyone on the call has experienced at some point, where you have agents sprawl, and if they're created in the light experience in Copilot Studio, then they sit over here, and if they're in the full experience, then they're in here, and then if they're Power Automate solution, it's elsewhere, and you kind of have these pockets at that point of administration, which the less portals, the better, as far as I'm concerned. Less tabs open is good. So I think it's definitely helping in terms of pulling those different areas together and having a list. I think the bit that's missing at the moment is what control for that then actually looks like. There's a real big thing, I think, generally around, which again is probably something that not a lot of people consider, around, well, who are our citizen developers? How far can they go? What can they do? And who do they pass it on to once it's done? And what does that workflow look like? And that's not something that we're really able to do that well at the moment. You can kind of make it work with a few different pieces of tooling, but it's not seamless. So I think we'll have organizations that let the floodgates open, at which point Agent 365 is great, but it's, again, just a visibility piece, really. They'll have organizations that will lock it down completely, which the security part of my brain feels really happy about. But the innovation and productivity says, if we lock things down, people aren't going to try it, so it becomes pointless. So I think there needs to be a happy medium where the controls exist, which is great, but we then need more controls to start to define those workflows, essentially, and define what route someone needs to go through to actually create these things at enterprise level, but with the right controls at the same time.
Finding that right balance is always the tough spot between security and productivity. Yeah, that's why IT people are still paid so well. And 10 years ago, everybody was saying that IT people will be out of a job because of a cloud, but we're busier than ever. But Andrei, and I'm catching you as you're drinking water. I'm sorry. I'll go back to the original question for you. In your experience as you implement AI, what governance gaps do you see surfacing first? What are the first complaints as you implement Copilot?
So I think both Danijel and Callum covered it pretty well, right? So for me I don't have the same experience as you when it comes to working with customers. I don't work. I'm directly there into the business with having these issues, right? And then what is important, right, is that every organization is different, right? So if we say something here, maybe will not apply to everyone, right? So we have to adapt every time, and it's impossible to open it up. I mean, to open the entire world, right, for everyone when it comes to citizen development. But the gaps, right, about the gaps that shows up first, right, is I think it's permissions and data quality, right? That will surface just straight away. Will be there. You will see this will happen, right? No matter what. And like we said in the beginning, right? The AI just amplifies whatever foundation you had in the past, right? But this is just amplified, right? You amplify productivity, but also the risk, right? And everything that you had, right, already as a gap before AI, right? And continuing a bit on the discussion, right? And something that you just said, Vlad, the balance, right? So when I go to these conferences, right, and brainstorming, also meeting some ex-colleagues, discussing with you maybe, or someone from product group, right, from Microsoft, is you realize that we are all different, right, because we have different set of customers internally, right, people, end users. I always see that there are two different types of people using Microsoft 365, right? There are people that are having everything open, and then people that have everything closed, right? I haven't seen too much of administrators or IT leads having sort of in the middle, or it's either one or the other, but you lose on both, right? If you have everything open, you lose, right? If you have everything closed, you lose again, because you know what happens, right? We have this AI, why we are not using it? So it's always hard to find, but we need to work and see how we can adapt and provide rules that are not applying for everyone, but in a sense that this will kind of work and cover all these gaps that we have, right? This is how I see it.
Fully agree. And, it reminds me, because I come from a pure IT pro background, the network admin, things like that. And we've always been taught that the more you close down, the more secure you are. And that's how we grew up as IT pros. But if you look even in the Microsoft security score, if you close down external sharing in Microsoft 365, you actually lose points, because people still have that need. So if they cannot do it, they cannot find that productivity in your tenant. People are smart enough nowadays that they're gonna, open up their own ChatGPT account or Gemini or whatever, and they're gonna do it elsewhere. So it's that challenge, like you said, if we don't provide them the productivity, and we're kind of, extremes is bad. You gotta find a way to be in the middle. If not, it'll be way worse for everybody. But let's move on a bit, talk about, let me go here. I have so many awesome questions. And by the way, for everybody inside listening, if you have any questions, please put them in the question box. This way I have more great questions to ask them. But I just want to talk a bit about the Gartner Golden Path to AI Value, which is a keynote they recently did. And they said a term that I really liked, which is governance before transformation. And, every suite of software is different, but what does that actually mean in practice for us in the M365 domain? And Callum, I'll start with you this time.
I might have a slightly controversial opinion here, Vlad. So this could shoot us in the foot.
I love it.
I think partially that's a bit of a fallacy. So in any other technology stack, I kind of get it a bit more, because things don't necessarily move as quickly. I think we've seen with AI, governance absolutely is important. I think when a lot of people hear that, they take it to the extreme and say, we're not doing any AI until our organization's perfect. It's never going to happen. Number one, your organization will never be perfect. I have been a consultant for a few years now, more than I care to mention, and I have never seen what I would consider a perfect organization from a data standpoint, from a security standpoint, even from a productivity standpoint. It's not going to exist. I think the second part of that is the technology moves so quickly that it's really difficult to almost say we're going to press pause and get this right, because the solution that we're designing today in 6 months will probably exist. Someone else will have made it, or even someone internally would have created it. So I think that the big probably thing I want to get across to everyone when we talk about governance before transformation is really take it for what it is. Transformation, when I think of it, is organization-wide enterprise transformation where we're changing everything. You know, we're really modernizing. If you've got a few people that are just coming up with some quick agents and some very, very defined specific use cases, doesn't mean you have to tell them no. You know, think of the benefits that could have to your business. There's going to be tons. And equally, I think the reality is, for all of the efforts that we can all put in and all of the things that we can do, someone will find a way. There's always a way around. There's always something that you can do. And I'd much rather kind of what Andrei said a second ago. I'd prefer to sit more in the middle and inherit maybe a little bit more risk in some areas and be more open to it, if it means that I've at least got visibility and a bit of control of what people are doing versus them using their own accounts and going off, you know, completely on their own, moving organization data out of the potentially and just causing lots and lots of headaches. So yeah, I guess I'm 75% maybe of the way there with the whole governance before transformation. I principally agree. I just don't want people to take it too far, too extreme, and lose out on a really big opportunity. I said, random thought. So my general stance, I was at Ignite, Microsoft Ignite in San Francisco a few months ago. My general stance beforehand, before Ignite, was when I was talking to my customers, you know, if you're not doing AI yet, you're kind of okay, you can catch up. That's kind of flipped for me now. Since being at Ignite, since seeing all of the new features, since getting even more into the whole world of AI, machine learning, and some of the automation, I think fundamentally, if you're not doing some form of AI and it's not on your roadmap and you're not having discussions about it, organizations now will start to fall behind. It's just the reality of where we're in. So press the brakes, but not too hard, maybe.
Okay, that's real interesting. I'll come back to some of that risk a bit later, but Andrei, what do you think about? Is it governance before transformation? Is it free for all, or are you in the middle as well?
While Callum was presenting his thoughts there, I was thinking about something, you know, when he said that technology is moving too fast, and even if you prepare something, then it might change. I was suddenly thinking about licensing part, right? And everything changes that fast that I was preparing a roadmap for agentic, right? And then all of a sudden I realized, oh man, I have to change it again. But yeah, let's close this and going back to the question, right? So I can answer with some moves that Microsoft made as well here, and then it's up to you to decide how you can take it. But they released Copilot, and after they released Agent 365, and Copilot had, right, by default enabled Copilot Studio Lite. I don't want to get into details, right? You know what's and I think where I'm going, right? But you feel like you have productivity now, but maybe later we are introducing some features, right? So this can be an answer, right, for sure. When it comes to the balance between productivity and governance. But for me, it means basically clean the house before the guests arrive, right? In just a few words, not technical. This is how I feel about governance before transformation. So basically getting the basics in place before scaling AI, right? That's how I see it. But these different points, I think, yeah.
Yeah, you just have to be careful, like, you know, cleaning the house before guest arrives. You always hide some stuff in the room they're not going to go in, and hope they don't open that door and nobody figures out what you did.
Well, that works.
It works well, yes. Most of the time.
Most of the times, yeah.
Most of the time. Danijel, anything to add to this one?
Kind of how to put it. So I do agree with both Callum and Andrei. The one thing that I believe that we are kind of missing here is you are going to roll out AI, you are going to do the transformation, and one thing that's going to happen then, most probably is that you need to be very, very aware that the return on investment, if you don't have proper governance, at least in parallel to this, is going to be very scarce. So in that sense, yes, you can start with the transformation, and no, please don't block everything. That's obviously not what we aim to do here. But just once you're talking about this project, if you want to roll out AI wide scale internally, be sure to have the kind of governance piece and all of the security related stuff at least in parallel, if not a step before everything. So that's kind of the only message that I want to do here is most probably because if we are talking about Gartner and all of the analysis there, one of the first and the number one task that you should do to get the ROI, because this is the biggest blocker, is to get your security and governance in order. I believe around 70% of people that in those Gartner reports say that this is their biggest blocker to ROI. So that's kind of where you need to kind of also keep in mind when you're doing all of this.
But well, first of all, before I get into the next question, Andrei, you talked about how licensing changes and Microsoft cannot help themselves. But also, you know, both Callum and Andrei, you mentioned Copilot Studio Lite. I'm sorry to tell you that already got renamed since November. So licensing and renames is something that goes faster than AI those days. But Callum, I'll ask you, since you opened up the topic, is what can be the cost, either financial or reputational, if you get that sequence wrong, if you go too much transformation or too much governance, and then, you know, kind of go to the extremes?
Yeah, I think there's a whole host of issues, right? So I think if you go too far transformation, those controls aren't in place, so there's a large amount of risk in terms of, you know, data leakage, data loss, which is a huge problem. And I think that probably represents for every organization both the financial and the reputational impact, right? If you're an organization who has customers, and everyone has customers, and your customers are seeing that you didn't put the right controls in place and didn't manage your own rollout in the right way, how are they going to trust you to do anything with them? Which I think is absolutely a fair point. So, and equally, you know, there's the whole issue around financial penalties and fines. So I think they kind of link into each other. The worse your reputation gets, the less money you make. They're kind of a knock-on effect. So I think it's widespread. I think the other way, obviously, if it's too controlled, you lose that innovation. You lose the speed. I think with a lot of these things, which can cause a big problem. One of my old managers from a previous life said, generally speaking, within business, there's three ways to succeed. It's be first, be smarter, or cheat. And we don't cheat. That's a very bad idea. There's lots and lots of smart people, but it's really easy if you're first. So, you know, speed and innovation really helps, I think, drive that business forward. But in both situations, it's never a good outcome. I've very rarely seen organizations that go whole hog transformation or whole hog into control and have done it successfully without some sort of damage done somewhere. And I think absolutely the questions are right on, Vlad. It's sequencing, and I think every organization is going to be different. On Daniel's point, I like to try and call it practical compliance or practical governance when we're talking about these things. If your governance process to assess technology takes 3 or 6 months, that's not the problem of AI being too complex. That's a problem with your process. You know, that's just something that the business needs to start to look at, because it's going to be the same everywhere, right? So when we're talking about governance, when we're talking about how to sequence, try not to think that maybe as some previous technologies where, and I think a lot of people generally have a bit of a defeatist approach with this of, you know, it's going to cause all these issues and all these problems into our organization. We need to be practical, we need to be pragmatic and say, look, it's going to happen. So what things can we do in the right order for us? And that will change for everyone. I don't think there's a formula. So I think working with organizations and partners who know that, everyone on this call, I think, knows that and knows the sequence for our organizations, for what our customers do, is where we need to be.
Awesome. And let me already move over to the next topic, and I'll start with you, Andrei. how does poor data quality or oversharing affect the accuracy and usefulness of AI outputs?
This is a great question, actually, because it's all about data in the end, right? Oversharing, it's still data that is being overshared, right? So I think poor data creates inaccurate answers, right? And there will be a domino effect after. So you have to think about this, right? So it's big, right? If you're getting it right wrong. Oversharing is even worse, right? Because again, AI can surface things never meant to be widely accessed. But now that you have this powerful tool, like you said, SharePoint Online Search or SharePoint On-Prem Search, there are some issues over there, or maybe even if you knew that how to search something, right, using all your skills, and it's not going to work, 100% every time. But here is everything is changing, right? So I think that's my take on that. These 2 points, right? So it's
Awesome. Danijel, anything to add about how does data quality or oversharing affect the usefulness of AI?
So data quality kind of makes AI very, very confidently wrong. So that's the first part. And oversharing, how do I look at it? So it's kind of makes AI too capable. So in that sense, it will give you answers that you might not need to know. So in that sense, that's kind of the trust part. Do we know what's kind of what do we have overshared internally? So yeah, oversharing is obviously much worse than being confidently wrong. But yeah, both are very, very bad. Let's put it like this.
I feel like being confident. Well. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, no, just about. I think, and I did it a second ago. I think absolutely, Dan, you're right. Oversharing, and Andrei, you're right. Oversharing is a huge problem, and I think when coming back to the whole reputational problem, I do it all the time. I think about external reputation damage. How's this going to look to the market, or how's this going to look to our customer? It's a real thing internally as well. The amount of instances I've had of doing an AI rollout for a customer, and there's an Excel document somewhere called redundancy list FY26 or whatever, and it's a whole list of the people that Exco are looking to make redundant, and it's available to everyone. And lots of people have surfaced it somewhere. It's a genuine issue, and there are going to be tons and tons and tons of those. So I think, yeah, more so just to flag when we're thinking maybe reputational damage, don't just think about it as external, like I did a minute ago. Think about it as, if those kinds of documents leak internally, fundamentally, what kind of reputation are we going to have? Who's potentially going to consider moving organization because they don't trust us anymore? How are we going to attract new talent? All of the things that make a business tick. It can have knock-on effects there as well. Oversharing is a huge issue in that respect.
Oh, absolutely. I was going to joke that being confidently wrong, I think, is a thing that AI might have learned from humans, unfortunately. But again, that's a topic for another day. But we talked about the problems. We talked about the risk. And maybe, Callum, I'll get you started on this one. Do you think that human-led periodic governance, doing those access review every 3 months and just having only humans do everything, do you think that is still possible today with how fast AI is going? Or do you think that we need to start automating, maybe building tools to help us improve the governance as well?
I would say 100% we need the aid of tools. In the same way that I buy my bread pre-sliced now. I don't want to slice it myself. I think we need to treat this the same way. And it's a funny analogy, but that's how I look at a lot of these things. With the scale of data we've got now, even if we didn't have AI, it's a big enough problem anyway. If you're an organization of even a few hundred users, you're creating more data, I can almost guarantee, than you can comfortably maintain. That's just going to scale with AI. Its blessing is also its curse, in that it's just so much quicker to do anything, and information's created faster, it's shared quicker, more people have access to it faster, they will then create new documents off of that documentation. You'll get to a situation very, very quickly where you'll have 20 versions of exactly the same document, and then, as we referenced earlier on in this webinar, you'll have the issue of AI being confidently wrong, where it says, yeah, this is your answer, it's definitely this answer because there's this document, and it doesn't look at the other 5 that are 2 minutes apart in terms of day, or a couple of days apart. So I think now more than ever, having tooling, having automation to help you do that, still having, almost treating it as the same way we want to with our fleet of agents that everyone keeps talking about. We want you to be the manager of your fleet of agents. We want you to be the manager of your fleet of tooling that can go out and actually maintain some of these things. Your brain can't be ingested necessarily into these tools, but you can be the manager on the sideline saying, go here, do this, do that, and actually making it work. That's not going to be replaced. People's knowledge won't, in my opinion at least, won't go. It's much more important. Again, the analogy I use is I'd much rather have a human's brain and an AI body versus an AI brain and a human body.
That's first time I hear that. Andrei, as you're implementing those governance requirements for your client, where are you now between that human versus using tools to implement that governance plan?
At enterprise level, I think there is no way you can do this, even the enablement part, not just the governance part, without doing automation. It's impossible. It's really something that, at least this is the way I see it. Maybe if you have, I don't know, a small tenant, just a couple of sites, just a couple of users, you can still ask Mr. John from Contoso to do the cleanup for you. But here is bringing something back from the history, right, of SharePoint. But here is almost impossible, right? You need to automate, and you need to automate a lot, also on the enablement part, but also on the governance part. And this is how we are doing it. Otherwise, you cannot keep it up, right? And one more thing, going back to the previous subject, right, is what I realized is that most teams, right, haven't worked at this pace before. So when I say teams, it's not just IT teams, right? Every team inside an organization, right? So that means that the gaps grow faster than people can adapt, right? So that's why we need automations. We need automation in place in order to be able to succeed, right, and close all these gaps.
It looks like AI cannot unmute me before I talk first, so that's maybe something you can work on. But I love that. Danijel, anything to add here?
Well, obviously, let's say how we used to do
building the tools for automation, so that kind of acts it from a funny perspective in a way.
It's kind of, I have mixed feelings because I know that people right now, IT teams don't trust even their kind of workspace owners to do these tasks sometimes. And we are talking about agents or I don't know, automation, and how is this going to be trusted? So in that sense, some sort of combination between automation and human-led approach, but when I say human-led approach, not IT human-led approach, but always keeping the workspace owners and the people in the loop, kind of keeping the human in the loop, is most probably going to be necessary, at least in the midterm. So once we go and once the AI becomes so it knows everything, then it might be possible to kind of do everything on autopilot. At the moment, yeah, you need to kind of still keep the humans in the loop. And just maybe just what we see on daily basis is, even now we have organizations that don't even have access reviews rolled out, and they have AI. So that's obviously not going to work. So you at least need to have some sort of access reviews or let's say workspace reviews to get to the point where you at least have a chance to do it. And then you need to have alerts, at least that, to kind of get you to the point where you know if something that has been overshared or something like that at that point in time, or at least in kind of near term. So all of those stuff is something that kind of adds up. And what we see is that those organizations that actually delegate governance right now, they have the possibility of kind of removing unnecessary permissions, and they do it on daily basis. But I believe the last stat that we had on this was they remove permissions 5 times more than the ones that actually don't have this. So you actually can scale your influence as an IT team through workspace owners, but obviously there is improvement with automations there at least.
Awesome. Thank you so much for the detailed answer there. And I'll keep going with you with one more question. It's your turn to be first here. What foundational governance principles should every organization have before scaling AI?
So let's kind of go back to the previous answer. So obviously clear ownership. So every workspace, every site needs to have a real owner, at least one, and at least one for backup. So what we see right now is that a lot of workspaces are orphaned. So you don't have any owners, you don't know who should take responsibility for that, and there is a lot of data within those workspaces that is used by AI on a daily basis. So you don't know who owns that. And after that, the second part is the lifecycle discipline. So workspaces need to be created by, with purpose. Access reviews need to be done regularly, at least that needs to be done regularly. And then you need to archive and retire those workspaces when they're stale. So all of this lifecycle discipline is something that needs to happen on an ongoing basis. This is just to kind of have at least a chance to succeed in this. There is a lot of other stuff that you could be doing through alerts and automations, but these two things, if you want to take anything out of this, these two things of clear ownership and lifecycle discipline is something that I would like everyone to kind of take away from this.
I love it. Callum, anything to add to that?
Yeah, I'd probably say that there isn't a silver bullet. So every organization is going to be different. We all know that. There's not a formula for perfect entry into managing AI. Those points, absolutely, completely agree. I think the biggest one that I probably see this all the time is data ownership. Technology try to take absolutely everything and have their arms around it, and it will fall over at some point because they don't have that relationship with the data like the data owner would. So it's incredibly important. Which I think is a concept we probably talked about for a few years now, right? There's data owners. Most organizations know they need data owners. I think there probably needs to be a consideration the other way, then up to the board, up to your executive committee, senior leadership, whatever you want to call it. So we're making data owners responsible for cleaning up. I think there needs to be more owners than on boards, on excos, on committees to then start to make business-led decisions on how far do we go in each direction. You know, the reality is if someone comes up with an idea that involves AI that's going to double the revenue or the profit of an organization, they're probably not going to turn around and say, no, stop, we need to go and fix this permission first. But I don't think that's a technology problem. There's a lot that boards, excos need to then do to start actually directing technology. This isn't a technology problem. This is a business problem. Out of all of the engagements that we've done, I think, as an organization, the ones that fail are the ones where technology just tries to do it on their own and takes everything and doesn't assign data owners and doesn't make the board part of the conversation. So yeah, I guess my big thing probably to impress on absolutely everyone is yes, data owners, but also get more people involved. Don't do it on your own. It will fail. If you just treat it as technology, it's not going to go very well.
Awesome. Andrei?
Yeah, I guess that everyone wants to win the AI race, right? But not everyone understands the technology or the hidden costs, right? And I agree with both Danijel and Callum what they've been telling about that, right? So on top of that, start with awareness, right? Communication, training across all levels. And let's say that you already have that in place, right? I mean, like clear ownership. Then AI should make people more responsible, not just more productive, right? This is what we have to highlight every time, right? Because we want these tools, right? But we are going also to be more responsible for how we are going to use these tools and all this power that we're going to have from now on. So that's the way I see it, because we said clearly in the beginning that it's hard to, let's say, prepare people before enabling all the tools that we have there, right? There are a lot of technologies coming, right, from end user to the CIO, right, to be able to inform everyone. But at least this, we need to have some basics, right, in this.
It makes sense. And let me ask you, I just got a nice question in the chat that I think fits right in, and it's a very challenging one. How can we tell if our governance gaps are Copilot ready or not before we roll it out? We talked about that balance and, about starting at the same time as governance, but when do we know when, we can actually go and buy that license, even if we're not 100% ready? Andrei, I'll start with you on this one.
This is the hardest one, huh?
It's like, true love, you might know it from the first sight, but it's not as easy with Copilot readiness. How do you know it's the one?
Well, it's a good one, right? And I think it's the hardest. Well, it's really difficult to say if you are really ready, right? Because the learning curve, once again, we are also learning, right? Because everything is new. So you can start with evidence, right? You look at the incident trends, governance dashboards, audit artifacts, SharePoint advanced management insights that now are giving some results, let's say, and user feedback, right? You can start with that. You can have some numbers there, and there you will see how you can cope with these challenges, right? That's how I see it.
Awesome. Callum, how about you? When do you know you're ready to move on to the next step?
I'm going to be controversial again, potentially, but I don't think you can if you're just looking at governance in a silo. So there's foundations. All the foundations that we spoke about are still completely relevant. So permissions, data lifecycle management, they're a relatively easy one to kind of box tick to say, right, do we have policies in that control how long we're keeping our data for? Have we gone through enabled SharePoint advanced management? Have we run reports? All of those kinds of things you can tick off, not relatively simply because it will take time, but relatively simply in that they're very, very plain. It's very obvious once you've done it. There's an amount of agility that I think is needed with this, and it's a concept I think we've kind of talked around a little bit with continuous governance, and not just doing a governance review and then saying, great, we're ready to go with AI now. It needs to be constant. It will be I would be very surprised if an organization could do a governance review, just one, and then roll out AI without any problems, and roll out agentic solutions without any steps taken back to go and fix something. So I'd say all of the kind of foundations that we've spoken about are your starter, and I think being agile, having the right tooling, having agility is then how you fix forward. Treat it like any other project where you don't just do one thing and one discovery and that's it. Constant discoveries, constant governance, and the understanding that this isn't going to go away. The governance will remain forever as long as we've got these solutions in.
Awesome. Danijel, anything to add? How do you or the clients you've worked with know when they're ready?
I second everything that Callum said. So basically, you don't know when you're ready, and you don't need to kind of be ready all the time in that sense. But there are things that you can start with first. So you need to prioritize at least some of the basics to do it right. So there are a lot of materials on what kind of fits most here. What we've seen is that there are, let's say, 2 or 3 things that most of the organizations do before actually going the first rollout. The first thing that everyone does is you need to kind of check your private workspaces that are shared with everyone. So this actually beats the purpose, and you need to do that. If you have those ones, you can easily fix that stuff. So those are it. There are other kind of things that you should kind of focus on here, but kind of for everyone's sake. So we haven't talked much about sensitivity labels and putting that in. Please try to focus on sensitivity labels as much. So when everything is a priority, when you don't know what your sensitive data is, it's going to be much harder to do things. If you know what data is sensitive, if you have sensitivity labels roll out, you know where to focus your efforts before you actually start. And then you need to have the continuous governance going forward, all of the access reviews that we talked about, all of the alerts, all of the help from the AI that can help you there. But let's say it's not one and done thing that you kind of roll out, but starting somewhere, I would start first looking at your sensitive data and at all of those private workspaces that are actually shared with everyone. This is where the most of the oversharing actually is.
Awesome. Okay, we're getting towards the end here. So for this one, I'll start with Andrei, because yeah, so many awesome topics. I feel like I could go for another hour and get knowledge out of you all. As we get into this AI era, what is one Microsoft 365 governance assumptions that leaders need to rethink as they embark on this journey?
Yeah, this is a good question as well, and I think it's in the end the way I see it, right, is that we have to grow and learn together, right, ourselves and the leaders, right, and they have to understand that governance should guide innovation and not block it. At least this is how I see it, and it's a learning curve once again. So there is no way we can do it right. That's for sure. For like Callum was saying, was Daniel saying, but we have to have the basics. We have to look what we have. Labels, it's a good idea. We are using that 100%, right? Because you know where you are looking for and what data can be removed. But it's a learning curve for both, right? And we just started, right? So that's the way I see it. And I think AI is bigger than IT, right? It's for everyone. It's a new thing, right? It's a revolution. That's how I see it, at least for now, right? And I have this discussion almost every day with also other peers from different companies, right? Trying to share our experiences, right, with initiatives that we are running. But that's how I see it for now.
Awesome. Callum, for you, what assumptions that leaders need to rethink?
I'll try and be brief. Everyone on this webinar is probably thinking about that guy keeps talking a lot. I know we've only got a few minutes. I would say, don't think, I don't know if this is necessarily a governance assumption, I think it's a general assumption, especially when we're talking about AI. Don't treat AI as a technology project, as in don't treat it like you're rolling out a piece of software. I think a lot of pitfalls sometimes come in the, if you've got a DLP project, your DLP policy is either working or it's not. There's not really in between. It's either on or it's off. When you're rolling out a firewall, it's either there or it's not. AI projects are kind of different, and there's lots of iterations that people go through and lots of prep work that needs to happen beforehand. And I think sometimes when we consider AI to be a technical project, we can almost get lost too much in some of the technical detail and not really consider the why quite as much, and not considering as much of the governance that needs to wrap around it. You know, we're not just talking about technical governance, we're talking about someone's going to go and surface lots of data. How are they going to react to that? What kinds of things are they going to find? How could that affect them? It's not just technical governance anymore, it spans everything. So I think treating it more as this is a business project, let's go through our business governance framework instead, actually works a lot better in my experience than just technology.
Awesome. Danijel, how about you?
On a similar line, so governance and AI, this is not a siloed thing. So involving all of the key stakeholders, not just IT, also involving security, involving legal, involving compliance, involving all of those people. And what we've seen recently, and let's say as much is our kind of organizations having actually product owners for something like this. So this is a product. So you're actually rolling out a product for your people that are going to use it. So it's a product, so it needs to be treated like one. And those people are actually going to prioritize the stuff that you're going to be doing. If it's a governance thing, if it's a compliance thing, so you actually need to have all of the stakeholders on one side, and you need to have some sort of a product owner, product manager, something like that for the AI to roll out, kind of in a good way. Let's put it like this.
Awesome. Well, you know, one last question just came in, and I know we have 1 minute left, so we're gonna do this a bit like, you know, a fire question. And Callum, I'll start with you. Do you think the risk is more about security breaches or about employees making bad decisions based on bad AI outputs?
I think it's both. I also think it's bad AI inputs. So when we roll this out to some specific teams, I shan't name anyone, but to some individuals, the things that they immediately say, oh, I want to try this with AI, you know, we'll go and talk to a sales team at an organization, and the first thing they say is, oh, I wonder if it can tell me how much commission my colleague makes instead of me. And their inputs into AI are just as bad as the outputs sometimes. So I think it's all of the above. I think if you were to kind of hold me to one side of the fence, I would say the bigger risk probably comes in inputs and outputs of AI versus security. Security isn't a knock-on effect. If your output's bad and it's shared with everyone, that's a problem.
Awesome. Andrei, how about yourself?
Same as Callum. I think both, right? It's not just about security. And I can give you a quick example, right? So when you have poor data quality, right? One of the end users, right, serving one of the most important organizations that you have inside your company, right, might take some results which are not true, right, and share with the customers of them, right? So that can cause bigger issue maybe, right? So than what you're expecting, right, before. So it's both. It's not just about security.
Next time I'll need to add it in my prompt to you guys. You cannot say both. You have to pick one. That's an example of a bad input, but Danijel, I'll fix it now in my second iteration. You have to pick one. Is it security or is it bad decisions based on the AI output?
I would say internally. So oversharing is mostly an internal thing. So internally making maybe not wrong decisions, but knowing data that you shouldn't know. That's one part, and the other part that we also discussed. Wrong input gives you wrong output. So making decisions based on that is a challenge. So I would say internally is much bigger than externally.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for all three of you for the amazing amount of knowledge you're able to share in this hour. And of course, thank you so much to our amazing attendees for joining us on today's webinar. If you ever have follow-up questions, things like that, please go find them on LinkedIn, connect with them. They're all amazing people. So feel free to connect with them on all the social media that you can find them on. I'll just put it like that. And this is also the first of a three-part webinar in which today we talked about the problems and the importance of governance. Then we're going to take a look on how to fix it using out-of-the-box tools and the tools that we have available for us. And as mentioned, everyone who registered for this event will get a recording of the webinar. If you wish to share this with your leaders, please feel free to do so. It'll be a public link. You can share it with everybody. And if you have any further questions about any of our products, please reach out to sales@syskit.com. I'll forward all of them to Danijel directly. But it was a pleasure having you all here. Thank you so much again, Danijel, Callum, Andrei, for your time. So much appreciated. And I hope to see everyone in the next webinar.
Thanks, Vlad. Thanks, everyone.